Hello and welcome to Does God Exist? The podcast, or some people calling it the Godcast. Now, this is called Does God Exist? And at some points during this episode or some of the episodes, I might actually refer to the podcast as Opium of the Masses. But we have changed the name because we decided that that was a terrible name. So it's actually called Does God Exist? So if you hear me say Opium of the Masses at any point in this episode or other episodes, just ignore that. This podcast is called Does God Exist? Okay, hello and welcome to another episode of Opium of the Masses with myself, Jack Hester. And today we have a wonderful guest today. This guy is absolutely taking the comedy scene by storm. It's Alfie Dondas. I've said it wrong, didn't I? Dundas.
Whatever you are, Alfie Dondas. Thank you very much.
Alfie Dondas.
Thank you for having me, Jack. I'm very excited.
Yeah, very, very. Thanks a million for coming along. And you have, one of the reasons I asked you is you have kind of spoken about religion on stage.
Yes. Yeah, I've got some religious material that has kind of not got me into trouble, but I think as soon as you mention anything slightly controversial or something like religion or politics, it was one of the first pieces of material that like blew up, and not necessarily in a good way for everyone.
Okay, well, let's explain that. What was the bit and what happened and what was the negative reaction?
Well, it was one of my first bits. It was one of the first bits that did well online. And I thought it was a bit of a hacky joke, but I basically said I talk a lot about, I have a sort of Irish Catholic mum, and then I have like a posh dad. And all of my early material was trying to find anything between those points. So I had a bit on my mum believing in God and my dad believing in Arsenal Football Club. And then I had the first bit that kind of went super viral was I would say like, that meant I used to have to spend my weekends between the church and the Emirates. So I'd get up, I'd get into my special kit, we'd meet up with the local drunks and we'd do homophobic chanting for about an hour. And then dad would pick me up and take me to the footy. And that was like the first.
That's a great joke.
And that's good. You can bank that. That's a great joke. I mean, it's hard to tell without a crowd, but that was the first clip I put online, and Arsenal fans loved it. So it got that first push, and then it hit the Catholics, and they didn't like it quite so much. And they were like, well, there's nothing homophobic in the Bible. What are you talking about?
Did someone say that to you?
I got maybe 200-300 DMs and comments about it across Instagram and TikTok.
Really?
Yeah. Just being like, well, also not necessarily being nasty, although you do get nasty comments online, but just Catholic people who don't watch comedy.
Right.
Not understanding that I'm playing with the assumptions that everybody has on the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And just being very literal with it and sort of going, well, there's no homophobia in the Bible. What are you talking about? There's no chanting in the Bible.
So they were saying, they took you literally.
Yeah, they took me literally, but also they weren't saying this isn't funny. They were going, you don't know your stuff.
Yeah. They just thought you were some crazy guy in speaker's
It's
corner.
arguably worse. As a comedian, if someone doesn't like your comedy, that's subjective. But if someone just doesn't think you have your facts straight,
yeah,
that is cutting to your core.
That really hurts.
But now I've actually I've got a show coming out around Christmas, and I talk a lot about the Catholic Church in that, and I am now trying to be more considered with any sort of lazy stereotype. Not because I don't think it's fair and because it's punching down. I think the Catholic Church is one of the few things that I, as a privileged man, can punch up at.
You can attack.
Constantly.
Yeah.
It's the only thing. It's like the royal family, celebrities, the Catholic Church are the only things that are above me, to be honest. I can't make a joke about you. You're way, but like, the Pope, everyone's like, why are you taking the piss out of the Pope? I'm like, he runs a $1 trillion fund and he has hundreds of millions of followers.
So let's backtrack here. So it's the Catholic Church, it's the royal family.
Yeah.
And who was the other one?
Maybe Jack Whitehall's above me. And like celebrities.
And celebrities.
If you're a celebrity.
What about Silicon Valley?
Oh, if you're a billionaire. Yeah. The only people more privileged than me are billionaires and royals, basically. All of my material is about Elon Musk, Princess Diana, and the Pope. And it's like, because those are the only three people that no one can accuse me of punching down on.
Right.
They're the only people above me. I can't joke about anyone else.
You can't joke about it. And so come here and tell, right, let's go back. So your mother is an Irish Catholic woman and your dad is a posh Englishman.
Posh, it's sort of Protestant, but in the sense of like by default. Like my mum was raised Catholic and on my mum's side of the family, we have a lot of Catholic ministers and those kind of things. And on my dad's side, it's kind of just like, well, you are English, therefore you are Church of England.
Church of England, okay. How did your parents meet?
My parents have very different upbringings. My dad grew up in an titled, like my dad's a lord, and grew up in a very posh, very aristocratic, stately home in Yorkshire.
Right.
And my mum grew up sort of the daughter of a diplomat in Lagos and Istanbul and Atlanta. She was sort of moving all over the place. And then they both worked in retail, and they met at a retail conference in Japan in, I want to say, the early 90s. Back when if you wanted to sell, my mum was selling furniture, my dad was selling jewelry, you'd go to an expo. So
Right.
they met in Japan and sort of started dating. And then my mum's family were strictly Catholic. So that was always going to be the dominant force. So we went to Catholic mass growing up, and my dad sort of came along and did all of the right things, but didn't go. What I remember really clearly, the only reason I knew my dad wasn't Catholic was because he didn't go to collect the bread.
Okay.
So me and my mum would go up and get the bread, and he would sit and wait
And sit and wait.
and think about his sins as a non-Catholic.
That brings me into my first question. Like, what is the start of your religious education or guidance?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's a mixture of at home, not in the house, but like on Sunday going to mass, and at school. To be honest, my first memory really is going to school and having religious education, RE. I think in some places they call it RS, like religious studies. I'll be honest, it was mostly three religions. It was mostly sort of Catholic, Protestant, Jewish. We weren't learning a hell of a lot about Hinduism and Buddhism and Sikh. It was religious studies, but it was like two religions that you studied, and that was at school. And you're reading the Bible. And I went to a Church of England school, so it was like, we'd go to a church and we'd have assembly, but there'd be sort of hymns and readings.
Right.
So it was like religion without spelling it. It was sort of soft R religion, and so I didn't know what it was. I didn't know that I was buying into this concept. It was just part of the daily routine.
Were you aware that it was a different religion to the religion you were going to mass?
No,
to?
because that's from ages 2 to 8. This is when I'm at primary school, and we go and we have assembly and we read a hymn, and I loved it because I liked public speaking. I always wanted to, I didn't know I wanted to be a comedian, but I loved public speaking. So I was doing a lot of the readings, and at the end of the readings, you say amen and they say amen. But I just thought that's how you ended speeches. It's very lucky that when I did my first gig, I didn't land that final punchline and then go, amen, thank you very much. Well, my name's been Alfie Dondas. Have a good night.
That'd be a nice little trademark for you.
Yeah. God bless.
God bless.
Well, that's what Conan says when he finishes his podcast. He goes, go in peace to love and serve the Lord. And then he ends the podcast.
Okay.
But no, so from 2 till 8, I'm going to a Church of England school, doing a sort of semi-religious undertone to my day-to-day life, and then not conscious of it. And then when I was 8, my mum took me back into going to mass suddenly every Sunday. So up until 8, I hadn't gone to, we'd go for Christmas, maybe Easter. And then from 8 till 13, when I then went off to boarding school, I was going to Catholic mass every Sunday and did my first Holy Communion and the lot.
Did you do your first confession? Do you remember that?
I do. I remember my first confession really well. This is going to sound so sad, but I was a real goody child. So I just made things up.
Yeah.
I remember my first confession because I remember them going, you go in and you tell the priest something that you've done wrong. And I remember looking around at all the other kids and going, how much time do you have? I mean, with this lot, and I've spent the last 16 weeks with this lot. They're mental. Me, I was a really goody child. So I went into the booth and and it's quite an advanced thing to be doing at 8 years old. I remember coming up with things that sounded plausible.
Right.
I bit my sister. I stole someone else's toys, and I feel really. My My sister is 15 years older than me and didn't live with us. I didn't bite anyone.
Yeah.
I wanted, as a people pleaser, I didn't want to let the priest down. I didn't want him to think he wasn't doing his job properly because I had nothing to confess.
But do you not think you could have confessed that I tell lies?
No, because, I could have only done that on week 2. Week 1, I went in all guns blazing and I hit this person and I stole this and I cheated on my test. Week 2, I lied last week. That was my only option. I didn't have anything. I genuinely, either I was such a goody-goody, but also I was so confident in my decisions that I was like, I haven't made mistakes.
Right.
These other 8-year-olds, they're making mistakes and they're learning from them. I don't make mistakes. I was like that. I was locked in early, 8 till 13, every week coming up with something new. And then the priest would go, well, it's okay. We all fight with our families. We all steal, but the Lord forgives you, amen. And I'd go, thank you very much. But I was doing it for him. I wasn't doing it for me.
Gotcha. And come here, so you went to boarding school. A lot of boarding schools have a religious
element to
them. Did the one you went to?
Yeah, I went to a Church of England boarding school, but as a Catholic. So it was a big enough boarding school that we had both a Catholic and a Church of England service. Not every day. I had to go to, again, it was like my primary school where morning assembly was in a church. And sort of, I never really questioned that. I didn't see that as religious. I saw that as boring school stuff. So every morning we had assembly and there would be hymns and there would be readings and there'd be an address, but it was Church of England and it was like 15 minutes. It was really quick. And it was just like a morning thing to get you in the mood for the day. In a huge, I'm talking 1,500 boys in a church.
Every morning?
Every morning. Well, the school was maybe split in two. So for the first 2 years, you're in a 500-seater. I see it in terms of comedy venues. Yeah. We're in a 500-seater, right? We're at Bloomsbury Theatre for the first 2 years. And then when you're in the senior 3 years of the school, you're in a 1,000-seater. You're doing Hackney Empire or whatever you want to call it.
And was this where you were reading at the Mass? Had that started yet?
This was when I was then, no, so I was doing more readings when I was at primary school. Now we had priests running the show. But what I did really admire was the address, every morning coming up with 10 minutes of material of how to talk about living a sort of spiritually pure life, but within the context of the school universe. So talking about, good luck and God bless to the year 11s. They've got exams coming up. We give them strength. So sort of religious terminology, but in a school environment. And that was Monday to Sunday, except for Sunday I would go to Catholic Mass, and Wednesday, weirdly, we'd go to Catholic Mass. And that would be probably 10%, 15% of the school was Catholic. So there'd probably be a couple hundred of us. And we would go to a smaller church opposite. I don't even know if it was a real church. I think it was just old classrooms. And that's where we had a Catholic priest. And we would do communion and we would sing Catholic hymns. So yeah, I'm doing 5 days a week Church of England, 2 days a week Catholic. I'm a Catholic weekender, pretty much.
It's a lot of religious education. It's a lot,
but it's background. Like we're not talking about it, and people are still studying. Again, we're still studying religion in the classroom, but we're not studying. No one's studying the Bible. No one's. I have friends from school that are much more religious now than what they were at school, because at school you're so caught up in school life that religion kind of comes secondary. And now that they've come out of that system, everybody's gone one of two ways. You either never go to a church again and you're now, agnostic or atheist, or you double down back in your religion and you go 15 minutes each morning talking about, God bless the football team isn't enough. So some of my friends have now gone back into the church in a major way and either now work in the church or just are going every week and are reading the Bible and are, et cetera, et cetera.
And did you enjoy that 15 minutes? Because you're kind of saying you sort of listened to it. You didn't just daydream. You were paying attention. You actually...
It's the best part of my day. Not because of the religious aspect to it, but I was like, this is a show.
Yeah.
This is great. It was like, this is a really eloquent speaker.
Right.
And I was always impressed by the sort of frequency of it. It was like, this person is doing a mini service 7 days a week, 2-3 times on the weekend. And I was always impressed by, I've always been impressed by like any kind of religious, anybody's leading a religious ceremony, how well they tie things together. You know what I mean? Like when they start the address, I'm sure every different religion has a different version of the story bit in the middle where they talk about what's going on in the news and they tie it to the Bible, and then it all comes together and the final point is be kind or whatever.
Okay, so you had a fascination with the storytelling, but it also sounds like you were just kind of you were fascinated by the public speaking aspect of it.
Yeah, well, but that's the same for me with anything. I mean, I go to a lot of concerts, and I can't do anything musical at all. I can't sing, I can't play an instrument. But if I see a performer, if I'm at the O2 and there's 20,000 people facing this way, and then there's one person facing that way, I'm like, I want to be that. What? I'm interested in that person. I'm not interested in what these people think. I'm interested in what it must be like to be that one person. And if you scale that down to a church and you've got 50 people in your congregation, but you got one person in a robe on a stage with a mic facing this way, and then you got 40 schmucks listening to every word over there, and then paying at the end, I'm like, this is fantastic. I want to be up there. I don't want to be here.
Do you think if you were born at a different time in a different place where there was no stand-up comedy, there's a chance you might have been a religious leader?
I'm thinking about going into it now. You know those American ones where they will have like private planes?
Yeah.
I think it's a more financially viable career for me than stand-up is, to be honest. Like, I see on Instagram, the Instagram religious nuts, especially in America, it's very appealing. You talk and, you put some background classical music on it, 10 million views, you set up a Patreon, you start collecting donations. Those super pastors in the US, they fly all over the place and they sort of are their own sect of the church where they collect the fees. I don't really know how it works. It's very shady, very attractive for me.
You like the idea. And you kind of touched on it there. You said when people leave school, they either go double down on the church or some of them become atheist or agnostic or what. Where do you sit? Do you believe in God?
Probably not, logically. I feel, and I'm sure a lot of people do, like a real tension between wanting to believe in God and actually being able to. I have people that are close to me who are 100% in on whatever version of their religion they've sort of buy into. And they're really good people. And I really believe that they really believe. I don't think it's I'm not cynical of people that are religious, unless they are using it to bring other people down or spread hate or make money or whatever. But I've got friends that work in churches. I mean, one of my best friends works in a church in Oxford, and there's absolutely nothing selfish in it. And he's 100% a better person than me. And importantly, he's also more intelligent than me. And that's difficult because I look at dumb people that really believe in God and I go, you've just bought into a cult. But it's when I meet really intelligent people that really believe in God that it is harder for me to kind of logic my way out of it. But no matter how many times I try and want to believe because of hope, because of, seeing people that have passed away. Also, I'm very anxious, very existential person. So it would really solve a lot of issues for me if I could buy into the idea that this is all part of a wider plan and it's out of my control. Because my biggest issue is that what if all of this is within my control and therefore I can fuck it up? Whereas God is incredibly comforting, whichever God you believe in, because you can go, there's always salvation, there's always forgiveness, there's always an afterlife. If people pass on or you fuck something up, there's always a second go. And I just can't do it. I want to believe in it, but I cannot convince my own head that it's the most likely option. I really approach it as with like an Occam razor's kind of whatever the most likely thing is probably the right one. I can't convince myself that it's more likely there is a God than it is more likely there isn't. And people always point to like, well, how could we have this earth and how could we have, these big coincidences? When people go, this is a sign, God sent this person, what a coincidence. I believe in like randomness. to the point that it feels magic. So many things are happening all the time that eventually you're going to get a combination of things that blows you out the water. You know, when people go, you won't believe what happened. I was about to call this person and then they called me and the phones hit at the same time. How do you explain that? And I go, well, I just explain that as you don't notice every time it doesn't happen. And you only notice when it does happen. It's confirmation bias. And when people talk about evolution or they talk about the human brain or the chances of us existing, I'm like, I agree, the chances are so slim and the story of evolution is so murky, but it is just because I can't understand it or explain it, doesn't mean I'm just going to replace it with this abstract entity of God. Someone's like, well, how do you explain how the universe started? And I'm like, I can't. But that doesn't make me any more likely to believe that an entity created it in 7 days. Just because I don't have an answer doesn't mean this answer is any more compelling. It just means I don't know. And so in that way, I'd probably be agnostic.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting. And did you, when you were younger, did you believe in God? Was there a time when you did?
It's really hard to tell. When I was 8 years old, I had a younger brother. So my dad's been married 3 times. So I have older half siblings who are sort of 10, 15, 20 years older who I didn't grow up with. And then my parents, it's just me and my younger brother, Louis. And he passed away when I was 8 and he was 4 of a brain tumor. And it was sort of one of those things where that's what got my mum back into the church. Not necessarily because, but, you know, she'd just lost a 4-year-old child and she was looking for community, I think. And we had some very close friends and they got us back into church. And it was also about structure. It was about getting back to daily life. And I think and I hope that it gave her comfort in that moment. But for me, that was the only point where I believed in God because I was being told that this was all part of a plan. When someone close to you dies, especially if it's tragic, if it's someone young, like people really don't know how to react. And there's nothing logical they can say to make it better. It's not like when you lose a 96-year-old, you go, they had a good innings. It's like you lose a 4-year-old to cancer and it's really inexplicable. And it's really hard to comfort people. And religion really was the only thing that, albeit maybe on a false premise, can give you comfort. But I even remember being 8, going to my brother's funeral, going to church afterwards every Sunday, and having people go, you know, God always calls his angels back, and this is all part of a plan, and just being like, that's bullshit. That can't be. Maybe because I was selfishly just like, that isn't comforting at all to me. I wasn't being cynical about the religion that I was buying into. But even at the point where I was at my most, at my sort of youngest and most malleable, most vulnerable to wanting to believe in religion, wanting to believe in an afterlife and a divine plan, I still couldn't get there. And I feel like I didn't quite lock in then. And every year since has been moving slowly further and further and further away from it. I still try and buy into spirituality in some way. And I still, go to my brother is buried in London, and I still go to the grave, and you sort of have a moment of silence. And whenever I go abroad, or even across the UK when I'm gigging, if there's a beautiful church, I'll go and I'll light a candle. But it's not because I really feel something is happening. It is because it's a nice moment for me in the moment. It is more like meditation than it is like religious connection. But I'm aware that the feelings could be quite similar to each other.
So that's another one then for you then. Another question. Where do you turn in times of difficulty? What is the thing you turn to? Because for a lot of people it is religion. So if you don't have religion, what do you turn to?
It's a good question. And I think it's something that like I'm still trying to figure out. And I just really believe in people. Like I don't know if a God exists and I don't know if there's an afterlife, but I'm very confident that this is all real. I'm very confident that the relationships I have with people are real. Even if they don't mean anything, even if after we die nothing happens, even if God doesn't care, does exist but isn't kind, or whatever the outcome is, in the moment, in the year or 5 years or 60 years I have with someone, as a friend, as a family member, as a colleague, as a relationship, like I really believe in those real experiences and the feelings I have in that moment. So I'm nihilistic in the sense of I don't necessarily think anything's going to happen when I die, but that doesn't lead me to the conclusion, well, therefore nothing is worthwhile now. So if something goes wrong, I try and hit it with an approach of, well, don't worry, it's just life. It's just one big game. There's no sort of eternal rotting away in hell because you fucked something up or because you weren't successful enough. But also then boxing it in and going, but you've only got one life and it's short. So what are you going to do? Are you going to mope about it for 3 days, or are you just going to go again? Are you going to go again? Are you going to go again? This might feel like a trivial metaphor, but like I used to play a lot of tennis, like growing up, and I used to go to like Barcelona and do these tennis training camps or whatever. And I remember learning that like Nadal forgets about a point about 2.5 seconds after the point has ended. And in tennis, Federer, interestingly, he was doing the commencement speech at like Harvard or something, and he was like, I only won 52% of my points over my career. He's the greatest tennis player of all time. He won basically just over half. And what you have to do in tennis is and a lot of things in life, is you have to focus on the point like it's the most important thing in the world. And then the second it ends, you have to move on. And if you do stand-up, it's the same thing. You cannot waltz on stage and expect to be great off the cuff. You have to give everything. But if it doesn't land, you can't hold on to that failure because it will linger and it will force you to take a bit of time off, wallow, lose your confidence, and you'll be worse the next day, or worse 20 minutes later if you're doing 2 sets in a night. So I try and take the approach across everything, which is like you have to be all in on whatever's going on right in front of you. And then the second it ends, whether it goes well or if it absolutely fails and you feel like just like kicking the can and being like, I'm done with this, you have to forget about it immediately. And I think it's easier to buy into that if you don't feel this presence of like a looming God that's watching everything you do.
Mm. So that's very like kind of sort of like mindfulness, really, isn't it? Just being present, living in the moment. How did you get to that part? Do you think you just naturally that's in you, or was there a conscious decision to try and think like that?
A bit of both. I think I'm naturally an optimistic person. I'm not a pessimistic person, but I am very anxious, and I wasn't in control of it as a teenager. Now that I'm older, I'm more in control of it. There's a hell of a lot of therapy, but also I just have very kind people around me, and I don't know. As a teenager, I was mentally much more lost in the sense of didn't really know what I wanted to do, which is fine and normal. But when you're there, it really doesn't feel fine and normal. And I didn't have God or like a kind of community in that sense. But I felt a sense of purpose. And I really find people that are really obsessed with what they're doing very exciting and inspiring. I definitely believe in energy. I believe in sort of feeling an energy that could definitely easily be confused with a divine being. You know, you go to a service or a funeral and it's still, or it's quiet, or there's a choir, or we go to gigs and sometimes I'll be sitting at the back of the gig and someone will just perfect conditions and they'll be killing, and you'll be like, this is elevated. And that's why I try and find that kind of, I'm sure loads of religions have different terms for it, but it's kind of like a weightlessness, it's flow state. It's when time doesn't feel like it's passing, it doesn't really feel like work, you're just in the flow. And I can see other people in it. It doesn't have to be me on stage, although that is a nice feeling. But, I go watch Billie Eilish at the O2. So there's 20,000 people around us and she's in the middle of the stage and she's tiny and and the whole room's quiet. And you've got kids holding up signs saying, you saved my life. And you've got dads who've been dragged by their kids who are now crying. And I remember the first time she came to London, she was 19 or whatever. And she's singing and they'll put a single spotlight on her. And I'm like, she could elevate. Like, I would not be surprised if she literally levitated off the ground and flew right now.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think that's the best thing about stand-up. I think that's the bit that's compelling and addictive is that flow state, and it does. There are times where you're in the room, and like you said, it's not always necessarily you. It can be someone else, and it feels like what has happened is bigger than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
It feels much bigger than someone has just said a few things and made a few people laugh. There does seem to be an energy that connects people and raises up. That's yeah, that's an interesting one there now. So I got one here for you then. If you did believe, let's just assume that you do believe in God, right? And that there is a heaven and you die and God is at the gates of heaven and he's like, give me 3 reasons why I should let you in.
I'd go, look, I did Jack Hester's podcast quite early on in his career. I was in episode 100. I was sort of one of the early episodes, one of the fucking ones you chuck out.
You know that was one of Ali Woods' reasons as well.
Ali and I are both very busy individuals, and we did a big favour for Jack Hester early on. We didn't know what it was going to be. Could have been, in his basement. No, I would. Well, I've got to try and convince him to get in.
Yeah, you have to give him 3 things that are evidence that you deserve to go.
And I can't say, look at all the material I did on you, big man. I reckon he has a good sense of humour.
Yeah.
My things with three reasons. I do believe that if I'm wrong and there is a God, that I will go to heaven. They might be arrogant, but I don't think you need to believe in it I don't think that's his criteria.
Okay.
Because a lot of evil people who live 80 years of just evil, really rotten stuff, and then they turn to God in the last couple of years. And I'm like, you're not getting in just because you're doing this Hail Mary at the end. I think you can live a very good, whatever that means, life without believing in God. I think if I had to convince him, I would hope that as an all-seeing, all-powerful God, he would know that I have tried to be as kind as I can to people.
Okay. But can you give specific examples? Because he's busy, like he has to watch everything. So you need to kind of remind him.
Yeah, well, I'm also a bit like, you're meant to be really focused on me, God. You're not meant to be watching 16 other people's highlight reel. I'd say, look, I've always, what would be like a concrete thing where I go, do you remember when I did that thing?
Yeah.
I'd say, do you remember when I used to go to church and I used to make up confessions to make your priests feel better about themselves? That's number one. I did that for you and the community. I didn't do that for me. I didn't even believe I was getting accused of anything. Not only did I not believe I was getting forgiven, I knew there was nothing to forgive me for.
Right.
I did that for your boys. Your boys down there on earth are really insecure. I perked them up by giving them some juicy confessions.
So you go around, you make people feel good.
I make people feel good.
Right.
God.
Yeah.
We're similar, you and I. I'd go, God. Now I got to be careful not comparing myself to God, because I think there is a theory that every male comedian has a bit of a God complex, and I'm now comparing myself to God. But fair enough. I'd say there's similar, you and I. I don't know my son either. I go, look, I was always lying to those priests to make you guys feel better. What have I done? I did a best man speech for one of my best friends from school, and him and his wife are very religious, and I didn't take the piss once in that speech. I had 200 religious people in front of me in a tent with a microphone. The temptation to make jokes about religion was very high. It's the devil's temptation. I didn't make I played it very safe. I think I even said at the end, God bless.
So we've got, you're making people feel good.
I'm making the priests feel good.
And you're respectful.
Who's looking out for the priest, Jack? That's what I've always said. I've always looked out for the priests. I respect the religious people in the room at the expense of good comedy. I put my comedy pride. If there's a joke there, we like to take it. I didn't take it. The third thing would be, what have I done that was good? As a child, I always committed to the hymns. And I can't sing. And everyone around me thought I was mental because I couldn't sing, and I belted the hymns.
Okay, so that's your tree there. So
It's commitment. It's commitment to what he believes in.
yeah.
And to be honest, if I do die and go to heaven and meet God, I might start to believe. I think it would be cynical to get there and go, I don't think this is real.
Right.
I'd say, look, we've had our differences over the years, but I've always dealt with your people in a respectful way.
Okay, very good. And have you ever heard this one, right? You may not have. The Pope and the Dalai Lama both have said that humour and laughter brings people closer to God. Would you have found that in your life or in your experience? Now, maybe not brought you completely close to God, but closer than...
They both said that.
They both said that.
Have they been to a comedy club
Well,
recently?
the Pope famously invited a load of comedians to
He
the
did
Vatican.
He met a lot of comedians.
No, so the Pope who said that laughter brings people closer to God, it's not the current Pope, it's the previous
Pope Francis.
Pope Francis.
And Francis is the Catholic name I took when I did communion.
Oh, right.
So there's a similarity there between me and the Pope.
Pope, yeah.
So if you refer to me as Francis for the rest of this interview, that'd be very nice.
Francis.
And it's because it's my middle name.
Your middle name is Francis?
Yeah.
Francis, very Irish name.
Very Irish name.
Very Irish name. Would you find that an honour to be invited to the Vatican to meet the Pope as a comedian?
You know what? I would go. I think it's an interesting topic because people are getting invited to the White House. A lot of people got invited to 10 Downing Street this week for Men's Mental Health Week, and they publicly said no because they disagree with the government's actions. Okay. And I thought that was really interesting because we are, and this is a wider thing, but we really are losing community. You know, it takes a village. As much as I don't agree or don't believe in a lot of religious rhetoric, I do believe that, you know, bringing people together once a week, faith in your government, faith in your whatever, is a good thing. I might not agree with the government in power, or I might not agree with what's going on in the White House, but I do think the complete erosion of trust in your church, in your government, in your media, kind of does leave you in a wilderness, which is not necessarily better than the alternative. A lot of people publicly saying they won't go to 10 Downing Street. If I was invited to the White House right now, I think it would be pretty hard to say yes. But if it was a president, even if I didn't agree with their politics, who I thought was a good human trying their best, which I don't currently necessarily think I believe in, then I would go. Now with the Vatican, I think Pope Leo is a good person, or good enough that I would go. But I think a lot about, like, would I raise my children religious? Will I get married in a church? It's all I've ever known growing up, but I think I would feel pretty inauthentic if I start doing, you know, Catholic weddings are really layer on thick with the God stuff. It's not like a little amen at the end. It's like, in the eyes of God, you're getting married. And I think I would maybe feel a little bit fake doing that, but I can't imagine what the alternative, I don't know what a wedding looks like not in a church. So I think a lot about, you know, how much will I engage with religion as I get older. I don't think the Pope I don't think the Pope and the Vatican watch my reels necessarily, but if they did and they invited me over, I'd be on the first flight.
Yeah, you wouldn't know what he's watching though.
No. I mean, the great thing about social media is every now and again, I'll get a like from someone and I just think, how the hell did this find you?
Yeah. Who was the last person that happened with?
Well, I've had a good one and a bad one in the last couple of weeks.
Go on.
Good, Channing Tatum.
Oh, right.
Liked my reels. Cool. Bad, Nigel Farage.
Liked your reel? He
liked my reel taking the piss out of him.
Oh.
But I don't know if he knew it was satire. I was talking about Reform UK. They released the £100 football kit with 10, Reform FC. And he liked it.
Yeah.
And Instagram show you if someone of interest likes your reel.
Yeah, yeah.
But the minute I get at the real Donald Trump liking one of my reels, I'll be like, oh, I don't know where we are now.
Yeah, you admit it. I suppose Farage probably just liked the publicity regardless. Good. He probably
also probably got a social media team just liking everything he's mentioned.
And I'd imagine he's, and I'd say Trump is very similar. I'd say they very much believe that all publicity is good publicity.
I've got a lot of Trump. I got a lot of Trump Pope material coming out later this year.
Okay, that's exciting.
Because starting from that thing that happened where Trump tweeted a picture, an AI picture of himself as the Pope. When the Pope died earlier this year, Trump tweeted an AI picture of himself as Pope, which to me is like the most mental possible thing you could do, trying to win over the Catholics.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of material of why he can't be a Pope, basically calling him a sexual offender. So I don't think I'm going to get invited to the White House.
Right.
Or the Vatican.
Or the Vatican.
Because they are the two punching bags of
your
comedy.
Comedy. Okay, I've got another one for you then, right? Imagine, right, you've died, you're in heaven, you've met God, you believe in God, and God has said to you, he's saying, right, Alfie, I'm going to let you be reincarnated, and I'm going to grant you a second life, and you can come back and you can live a second life. But there's one catch: you have to change one aspect of your race, gender, or sexuality. Now, you can change more than one aspect, but you have to change at least one. And what would you come back as, and why?
So you're telling me I can't pick straight white male again?
No.
Because it is the best. It is the best. Yeah. I wish it wasn't, but I would double down. Okay. Damn, I got to lose some privilege.
You got to lose some privilege.
Which privilege do I want to lose most? What would I want? So I have to come back as a person, or just as me? I can't come back as you. I can't.
No. You're essentially coming back.
Jack Hester.
You're
please.
essentially, I suppose, consciously you're still yourself, but you just have to change some aspects of it.
That.
But it's not like you can't come back as like a richer, more athletic woman, or do you know what I mean? It's basically you come back as yourself, but you're just.
So I can't be me, but with more money.
No, you're coming back
in better shape.
No, you're changing.
Fuck,
you're changing.
Nice.
You're still going to be you with your strengths, your weaknesses, your flaws, your talents. But you're going to change one aspect of your of those three things.
I tell you what, I have been very jealous of recently is like I would change the Englishness of me.
If so, you change your race.
I would change my nationality.
Okay, well, that's go on. What would you change to?
As in. I mean, I wouldn't mind coming back as a woman. I wouldn't mind coming back as a different sexuality. But like, I have no problems with being a man or being straight, which is, rare. It's good for us to finally clear that up.
Okay.
But I'd like to come back as anything. The one thing I don't love is it's very hard to be proud to be English, British, whatever you want to call it. It's like if you I just watched I feel like the Irish are having a fucking heyday at the moment. It's like I'm watching House of Guinness and Paul Mescal's in everything. And Fontaines are everywhere, and Kneecap are and it's just like there's just like a lot of pride. And even recently, this week, Ireland qualifying for the World Cup. I think Scotland qualifying for the World Cup. I'm like, there's loads of national pride.
Right.
The English. We just can't be like, we're not allowed to be supportive of the football team. We obviously can't have a England flag, on our back, because then I look like a reform voter. It's hard to be proud to be English, whereas the Americans, although I think they get it wrong, they are very proud to be American. The Irish are proud to be Irish. The Scottish are proud to be Scottish. So if I could come back as a different white.
Yeah, but that's not the.
Is that not the option?
That's not an option of it. So you're like, I'll come back as
Scandi. I feel Swedish anyway.
Yeah, no.
I like tiny little things.
You have to change. Now you could come back as like a black Irish man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, but
is that good? Do you guys have a good history there?
Well, we wouldn't have a long history of black Irish people, but I think I'd imagine. Black men in Ireland would experience a degree of racism and prejudice, maybe not to the same level as some other places because we didn't have the history of slavery, but I'd still imagine there's some degree of
come back as a gay black Scotsman. Come back as Ncuti Gatwa.
Who's Ncuti Gatwa?
The Doctor Who. He was in Sex Education as well.
So you come back as a black gay Scottish man.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It'd just be me and Ncuti Gatwa getting all the roles.
Right.
Doctor Who, Sex Education, all of those things. I would like to just come back as, I don't really care about the race and the sexuality. I just want to come back as something where I can go, like, I am from this country, and that's cool. I think if you tell someone you're English, you kind of have to whisper it. You have to go, and I'm also English. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but there must be.
Because you're a proud, you know.
Yeah, but not because I know you're saying all that, but like I'm from Ireland, but I don't really get caught up in the nationalism and the pride thing because it's
Sure,
just
yes, you
because
do.
it's just not. I personally don't. Maybe a little bit when I was younger, but like it's just not really in my personality.
You and I go to the pub and I order a Guinness. You look at me and you go, "What are you doing?"
Well, I don't even drink Guinness.
Well, then you're the worst. You're the worst national icon possible.
I give you an example. Like you're saying about the English flag. Like you certainly can go to an English rugby match and be head to toe in English gear and be as boisterous and as proud as you want to be, and there'll be no one will be in any way suspicious of you being racist or you can free reign. And I'm sure there's plenty of other sports too. And even the soccer, I think when the soccer's on, I think the thing that, when people are putting up flags and roundabouts and stuff like that, they clearly have a different intention.
It's when the footy's not on.
It's when the footy's not on that it's weird. And
when it's winter, the World Cup's not on.
And I think it's happening a bit in Ireland too. I have heard that in some areas in Dublin, they're putting up tricolours in the same way to kind of intimidate non-Irish people or non-white Irish people. So,
that's good.
Yeah.
So we're not the only ones.
You're not the only ones doing it. And I'm sure there's other parts of Europe where the white people are being equally as racist,
Well, then maybe I just go completely different tact. I would love to just come back Mediterranean.
But Mediterranean again isn't necessarily. They're white as well.
You're keeping me. I'm trying really hard to stay white, and you're kicking me out.
You're very determined to stay white. And what do you think? So, how different do you think your life would be if you were a black gay man? What do you think would be different about your life?
I think a lot of things. I think a lot about the fact that there is only so far I can go in understanding my own privilege. In the sense of there's only so much you can intellectualize about your own privilege. I can understand conceptually that nobody has ever really looked at me with bias. Job interview, school. I've never been, for more than a day, the odd one out, physically looking like the odd one out. When I was at school, if you were black, you would look around and there would be a sea of white children and then a black kid, and you feel, physically that you look different. I've had that maybe once or twice if I go to a Nigerian wedding or whatever, and I've had those very, very few experiences where I go, it's not a bad thing. It's not, I didn't feel threatened or whatever, but I'm just like, I do notice it. I'm conscious of myself. And I only by having those experiences am I like, God, what would it be like to have that every single day in the majority of the rooms you walk into? Sexuality is the same thing. I've only ever had to date in a straight way, which is the norm. It is the majority of culture, the majority of relationships I see on screen. It was very easy for me to look at people growing up and be like, oh, I want to be like him. If I want to be a comedian, well, here's 150 white male comedians that you can look up to. You want to be an actor, you want to be in tech, you want to be a billionaire, whatever you want to do, you can go, I can point to 150 people that can show me how to do it. So I can know all of these things. And when it comes to gender and, talking to women and realizing that, I walk home after gigs late at night and I don't blink an eyelid. I don't bat an eyelid. I don't consider my route. I don't notice if someone's walking behind me. I don't worry about my phone. I just don't even think about it. And so as much as I can understand all of those things and be as conscious of them as possible and not be naive in the way I talk about things and not make cheap jokes on stage that reinforce those stereotypes or show a complete ignorance, I don't know what it feels like in the body. And I think about it a lot. I'm like, I work hard and then I get stressed and I kind of complain about things. And then I'm like, but it's so easy for me relative to everyone else. It's not that I don't have I'm not working hard or I don't deserve good things or I don't have bad days like everyone. But it's like when I have bad days, imagine if you had all of this plus prejudice, or imagine you had all of this plus a period once a month. I'm just like, I complain about having to work too many hours in a day, let alone, I don't know what it's like to physically feel all of these pressures coming from other sides. So the idea of suddenly changing and being in that spot I honestly don't know what it would be like, but I would be, as much as I would love everybody to be equal, I would be stupid to assume that it's going to be just as easy. I would have had just as easy time in comedy if I was, a gay black guy. It's just not true.
Yeah, because the walk at home one is a big one too, because like it's I'd obviously the same. Like you at the start, you need to get as much stage time as possible. But if you have to be looking at where is the gig, where is the route home, and it's just
You're walking through.
It's extra energy. To
Also,
waste.
trains. Like when you start comedy, or I'm sure it goes on for a long time, but it's like you got to get trains out of London.
Yeah.
You got to walk around. London is. I know that everybody outside of London thinks London's a stabby knife zone. London's safe in the sense that it's relatively well lit and the tubes have a lot of people on them. That if you're a woman walking at home at night or on the tube late at night, I'm aware there's a lot of problems. But you find yourself, if I miss the last train back from wherever, I was in Canterbury last week, and it's just like, if I miss the last train, it's like I can kind of afford to wait a couple hours and get a 3 a.m. bus. But, I don't think I'd feel comfortable doing that if I was a woman. And even if I was a man, but I was not white, I'm like, everybody in this town is white. London is at least the most diverse of the UK. It's not 100% safe. But we notice these things in the relatively well-run place. You go somewhere where it's remote and you don't have phone signal, you're kind of on your own. That's where I would really worry about it. I've just never even thought about it. I just get offered a gig, I'm on my way. Get offered 2-3 gigs, and I'll just walk between them. I'll get on a line bike and I'll just cycle between them. 10 p.m., 11 p.m., 12 p.m., doesn't matter.
And I suppose that's the big advantage straight white men have in comedy, is that it's a drain on energy having to think about.
But
all
also,
those things.
a lot of people assume there's been this weird backlash to like posh people, and a lot of people say to me, "Well, like you must find it hard because nobody wants to." There's diversity quotas and nobody wants to cast the kind of straight white man. And I'm sure that is partially true, but is so offset by the fact that I am accepted in every community. When I go on stage, no matter what age or race or gender the crowd are, they are accustomed to seeing people like me on stage.
Yeah.
So that barrier to entry of building a relationship with the audience is very low. Whereas I'm sure there are some gigs and some roles that I'm not getting because they are trying to cast, diversity. But the hundreds and hundreds of gigs where you'd have to go on stage as a woman and half of the men in the room are like, women aren't funny, so they switch off. And you've got to convince them. Whereas when I go on stage, they go, well, let's see.
Yeah.
It's that little bit of kind of acceptance and that first boost of, I'll give it a shot. Let's see if you can do this. Rather than having to overcome someone's bias before they even get to a point of thinking about whether they're enjoying what you're doing or not. It's really hard to like measure, but it's a real thing. Mm-hmm. It's like if you have an audience of 100 people, what percentage of them have a prejudice against you? And therefore you're going to have a harder time convincing them to get on board. And if you're me, there's a couple people in the room, couple Marxists that might be like, I don't care how liberal he is and how well thought his points are. He's posh, he's white, I hate him. There might be like 2. But there might be 10% of the room that are genuinely a little bit racist, or 10% or 20% of the room that's a bit misogynistic. I don't really like female comedians.
Right, we'll wrap it up in this. So kind of to come back to it all, so the podcast is Opium of the Masses, and that you were talking about communist there. It's a Karl Marx quote about religion. Do you think that organised religion, do you think it's a good thing for society? And if we didn't have organised religion, what do you think would fill its place?
I'm sorry, am I on a communist podcast?
No.
Wait until my friends... my Tory MP friends find out about this.
Did you not know that? Well, so it's
am I not getting paid for this?
It's a famous Karl Marx. That's the name of the podcast. The name of the podcast is Opium of the Masses, because
didn't realise I was in Russia, Jack. I thought I was in London.
He said that he famously called religion the opium of the masses. Yeah.
So what do I think would be a better replacement for organised religion?
First of all, do you think it's a good thing? And if you do, but if you don't think it was a good thing, what do you think should replace it, or what do you think would because it does give people comfort, as you said yourself. It gave your mother comfort.
Not only does it give people comfort, I'm also very aware that it gives people structure and it makes people kind. The way I look at religion is as a vehicle which people can choose which direction they take it in. And there's a lot of people that read religious text, whether that be the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, and they read the goodness in it, and then they take those lessons and they go into the world, and they become a net contributor to their society. They look after the meek. It's all about charity. It's all about respect. It's all about structure, and they make the world a better place. And then there are some people that read it and they see it as, well, these are the rules. I'm better than you. These people are better than these people. It's all about man, and it's all about straight men and all of these kind of things. And they take it in the wrong direction. So I think if everybody read religion in the right way, I would be all for it. And there's a lot of people that are doing a lot of great things because they are compelled by this purpose to be a good person. And that is, in practice, a very good thing. But for me, in theory, it is still arbitrary which framework you get to. It's like getting the right answer but with the wrong workings. Some people might watch Andrew Tate and they'll go, well, he's saying I should just get in shape. And they might go to the gym and become a better person and lose some weight and feel better about themselves and be more charitable. But it doesn't mean that Andrew Tate's message is the word of God. It's that you've taken something, you've taken it in the right direction, whereas most people take it in the wrong direction. I don't know whether on balance religion creates more good or more evil. But so I don't know but I 100% don't know what I would replace it with.
That's right.
I would keep religion as it is, but I would encourage people to lean into the kind, charitable side of religion rather than the exclusive, holier than thou, kind of uppity side of it. If people would just shift that slightly, if everything you read and everything you heard was with a little bit more empathy, a little bit more kindness, that's what I would advocate for. Just like a movement of kindness, whether that is seen in the religion or not, that is what I would want to push for. Just like empathy, charity, hard work, purpose, all of these things. If that's what you get from religion, stick with it. If you start thinking you're better than other people, or that some people are condemned, or that everything's completely black and white, then stop reading whatever you're reading. Get into the real world. Come back when you're ready.
I think that's a nice, positive note to finish on. It's been very interesting talking to you, Alfie, and I wish you all the best with the comedy. You're absolutely flying. And this will probably come out in the early new year, but you're going to be gigging all the time anyway, aren't you? You'll have solo shows.
I'm gigging all the time, and if this comes out in the new year, then I will have just released my comedy special on YouTube, so people can go and watch that. It's called Privileged to Be Here, because I'm privileged to be everywhere, Jack. And that's on YouTube, so you can go and watch that. But
Brilliant
thank you
stuff.
very much for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on. Thanks a million, Alfie. Thank you.
God bless, Jack.
God bless.
God bless you.
God bless and good night.